Hey, good
Hi.
evening, everybody. My name is Brian Williams, and I am Western Colorado Alliance's oil and gas organizer. Nick?
Yeah, hi, Nick Allen. I am a community organizer with WCA, currently working on local food and ag as well as public lands. And I will pass it to Gretchen.
Thanks. I am Gretchen Nikoloff. I am a member and currently chair of the Legislative Committee. Carolyn?
Hi, my name is Carol. Hi, my name is Carolyn Dressler, and I'm a retired physician in Ouray County who is just a volunteer with the Legislative Committee for WCC.
Hey, everybody. All right.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, Daniel and Joel, as you're jumping on, just introducing yourselves quickly. We're going to go ahead and get started in just one moment as soon as you've done that.
Daniel, go ahead.
I was going to let Joel go first. All right. Well, I'm Daniel Haas. I'm a CMU student, and I'm the legislative intern.
And so much more. Hey, everybody, I'm Joel. I am WCA's organizer for clean and renewable energy. Thanks for coming today.
Awesome. Okay, well, I am attempting to get us live on Facebook, but realizing that I don't have the capabilities or technology capabilities, so I probably won't keep continuing to try on this. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump in and get us started. So before I share my screen, which is what we'll be doing for a lot of this presentation, I just wanted to introduce you all a little bit to what it is that we're attempting to do. So the We Are the Change webinar is an attempt to help connect folks to the Capitol. Generally, Western Colorado Alliance takes a big group of folks over to the Capitol to talk with legislators in person every year. That won't be happening this year. And so instead, we decided to create this webinar series so that we can connect with legislators every single week based on the bills that are moving through the Capitol. And by doing this, we're really hoping that we can bring our collective voice of West Slope power even louder than we've ever done it before, because there are some barriers in order to get over the Rockies during this time of year, whether it's weather, work, or otherwise. And so hopefully this will allow more people to connect to the work that we're trying to do. So there's really a wonderful breadth of organizations that you can get involved with that work at the state legislature. And we really do encourage you to get involved with more than just one to build a collective impact. However, we're really glad you're showing up to this webinar because our mission with Western Colorado Alliance is to focus on creating healthy, just, and self-reliant communities in our rural and small hometowns in Western Colorado. So we're really focused in this part of the state, which is unique to our organization in some ways. We focus on bills that have a direct impact on families living and working in Western Colorado. So why is this important? That would be, so far there have been 248 bills already introduced, even though we're in day 3 of session. And WCA is already tracking 41 bills. Tonight, we're going to discuss about 10 bills of the 41 that we're tracking, and we're happy to connect you to more, but we just want to give a little bit of a taste of the kinds of issues that we're going to be working on and how we are going to take those actions. So the issues that we focus on are renewable energy, sustainability, local food and agriculture, climate and environment, responsible oil and gas operations, and health and equity. So we look at all of these bills through a lens of equity in terms of how are we creating equity in the bills that we're working on, because we want to make sure that we're not only addressing these issues, but we're addressing the communities most deeply impacted when we look at all of these issues. We certainly don't have all the answers as an organization, so we love to partner with other organizations to get the right answers and hopefully move us in the right direction. We might also from time to time on these bi-weekly webinars bring on some students from our West Slope Youth Vote program. They're high school students that do the same kind of work we're doing tonight, but they bring it into the classrooms and they help connect high school age students to the reasons that's important to understand what's happening at the Capitol when legislators are voting on bills that have a direct impact on high school age kids. And then we're also going to make sure that we do discuss what's going on with COVID-19 and the bills that are moving through the chambers and what it is that our communities might be able to take advantage of in terms of programs to continue helping us through the COVID crisis.
Jerry, not to interrupt that very long list, one gentleman's texted me that he's in the waiting room.
There should not be a waiting room for the webinar. They should just be able to join. Is there a chance that you could send him a link from one of the emails that's gone out?
Yep.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, sorry about that. The last thing that I want to say before we jump into it is that, you know, our legislators, they walk into the Capitol, they're prepared to hear from lobbyists, they're prepared to hear from organizations like ours, but at the end of the day, it's the people in their community who voted them into the office that hold the most weight, and that's you. So our legislature is a citizen legislature. These are teachers, lawyers, ranchers, business owners. They understand our communities like we do because they live and work in our communities when they're not in session at the Capitol. So ultimately, they'll take votes that are weighted really heavily by the feedback they get directly from their constituents who take the time to reach out. So taking actions during a legislative session is really just as easy as voting if you know what you're looking for. And it can have just as large of an impact, especially on our everyday lives. So that's really the benefit of tuning in to these webinars and taking actions. Tuning in and hearing what we have to say, awesome. Taking those actions and those next steps, even better. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and jump into the presentation. And when I do this, I just want to quickly use, Nick is going to talk first for us. I want to use Nick, your bill as an example, just really quick. I just want to highlight that you're going to see a couple of bill numbers like this. You don't need to remember these bill numbers. We're going to try and break these bills down in easy ways to help you understand why it's so important for us as Western Colorado Alliance to take action. But just so you have an easier understanding for how to read that number. The HB stands for House Bill. That means it was introduced in the House. If there's an SB, it stands for Senate Bill. That means it was introduced in the Senate. So it will move through one of those bodies first and then cross over to the other body. The 21 stands for the year. So every single bill this year is going to have either HB or SB 21. For a House bill that's introduced, there's 4 numbers. For a Senate bill that's introduced, there's 3. And that number simply signifies the order of which the bill was introduced. So depending on what you're looking at, that is the bill that was introduced and when. So I just wanted to highlight that really quick, just so that you knew what you were looking at. And now I'm going to stop talking and pass it over to these really knowledgeable folks who are on with us this evening, starting with Nick, who's one of our organizers.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm going to talk real quick about HB 21-1062, or the easy way is just the animal shares one. We're very excited as a ranching group. Our members talked with them yesterday. This got introduced on Tuesday and we couldn't be happier. Because what it really does is it's going to open the door to more market access for our smaller, independent neighborhood rancher. You probably know one, maybe even more. So this will really generate more local power for Western Colorado Alliance and Western Colorado as a whole. Put it really simply, this bill is just like having buying a share of Disney stock almost. You own a stock in a cow. You can then become the owner of that cow. And as an owner, you get special privileges for processing. So right now, if you remember, we had that huge loss of food in our grocery stores. We couldn't get meat. And there's a 2-year backlog for a lot of our ranchers. What this can do is it speeds up the process, can also make you more connected to the food you eat, the farm to table. and as well gives more money that currently is going to the big players on the front range, billion-dollar corporations that control this market, takes money from them, puts it into your neighbor's hands. And we really love seeing this. The potential is huge. It's absolutely huge because we can get more ranchers in, more people that are directly connected to the land, more people that know the issues around climate change. This can be a game changer. It's a small step, won't fix anything, but just the ability for people to be more connected with the food they eat, as well as increase the amount that we can pay our ranchers and processors here on the Western Slope will really build that healthy, just, and self-reliant future that we're looking for. So we're very excited. We'll be working on the amendment process. We have some things that we want to see that we can add on. So we'll be following this one extremely closely and very excited for its introduction. And then our next bill that we're excited for is the agriculture workers' rights. As you saw headlines, and we were watching it a lot on our social media about the abuses that were going on in major meat processing facilities. We know the stories, and it's just so terrifying and just wrong. And what Colorado is doing is it recognized that, is going to give workers several more protections, including the ability to form a union, including actual pay above minimum wage, including pay, extra pay over working for over 40 hours, and more safety protocols that have to happen that should have been implemented before the pandemic. But now that we've seen what these effects have done to good, hardworking people, Colorado is going to lead the way and make sure that they're protected. And we have a saying that food rights and food welfare is worker rights and worker welfare. So we're also very excited for this bill and want to see its passage as well. And with that, I will pass it along.
Joel, that's you.
Thank you. Jerry, this is not the tri-state bill. How about I chat about the tri-state bill?
Sure. That sounds
Cool.
great.
All right. The bill you see on the slide is very interesting. It is not our primary focus this year. So for most of rural Colorado, folks outside of municipal areas are served by a rural electric cooperative. That's the local entity, such as the Delta Montrose Electric Association or the San Miguel Power Association. Whoever sends you that bill, that is a local entity that is run by a locally elected board of directors. It's a legacy of the development of rural America and the New Deal in the 1920s and 30s, that these democratically run cooperatives were created to supply power for most of the country, most of rural America. And here in Colorado, they're a really big deal. The vast majority of those rural electric co-ops in Colorado are on long-term contract with a supplier called Tri-State. Tri-State is a generation and transmission association. So it's the big player out there other than Xcel. Most of you who are municipal power customers are supplied by Xcel. You get your bill from Xcel. Virtually everybody else is supplied by Tri-State. And Tri-State, for a whole lot of reasons, has had the ignoble distinction of being both one of the most costly and the most dirty entities of its nature anywhere in the country. So it's been a big hurdle, both for people's pocketbooks, for rural economic development, but also for climate action in rural Colorado. So a lot of legislation in the last 2 or 3 years has taken aim at kind of putting some guardrails and some sticks and carrots around Tri-State to get those folks into a better place, to get that supply coming to your local co-op in a better place, because your local co-op doesn't have enough power to really change the system by itself. So we've seen a lot of really cool bills. The one that's coming this year aims to fix a lot of the democratic, or the lack thereof, issues with Tri-State. So the number of this bill, I'll pull it up really quick, is I take that back. We don't have a bill number yet. The bill that will be introduced is the Cooperative Electric Association's governance requirements. And if this sounds boring, the answer is what this thing does is going to be fundamentally transformative for putting democratic power back in the hands of ratepayers, people that are paying those local co-ops, and then putting democratic power back in the hands of those local co-ops when they go up to tri-state. So a couple things this bill does. It's going to allow member owners, everybody paying rates to their local co-op, to vote in those co-op elections online with a secure digital system. Probably 2% or 3% of rural electric co-ops around the country are currently doing a digital system for their votes. It's super easy. You go to their website. They usually mail you some kind of validation code, and you go in, you put enough info that they know it's you, that it's not prone to shenanigans. That would be huge. That'd be a really transformative thing as an option for voters. And one of the issues with these co-ops is that the vote participation rates, people showing up to elect those local boards of directors, it's like 10%, 10 to 15%. 20 is really high. So there's a lot of room for improvement, a lot of ways to engage more people in the public in exercising a say over what happens. So that's a really cool piece of the bill. The other thing, and this might surprise you, but the rules at Tri-State say that when your local electric co-op sends one person to their big board of directors, that ambassador from your co-op is required to vote in Tri-State's fiduciary best interest. It is one of the rules of the organization, of the corporate model, which is to say, on the books, your representative is supposed to show up and do what's best for Tri-State, not what's best for your local co-op. And if that sounds just absolutely bananas, this bill aims to fix that. And so one of the things it says is that organizations like Tri-State operating in Colorado may not have a rule like that. Your representative to that organization from your local co-op should be able to show up and fight for whatever your co-op's vision is, whatever it needs, what's best for its bottom line and its community values. So that's a really exciting thing. The last thing I'll flag in this bill is that it will require all those local rural electric co-ops to have full information about their rates, what they charge, why they charge it, what the most recent audit of their finances says, and then full information about their solar net metering policies, which is to say fairly complex information for what residential solar homeowners get paid and how their system works, what they get when they sell power back to the grid. And oftentimes most co-ops just don't make that stuff public. And it's a real big headache for homeowners and ratepayers that want to know what's going on, or for the few awesome busybodies in your community that want to spend their time holding your co-op accountable. So really liberating information for them. So that's this bill. Again, the bill title, I don't have a number, sorry. The bill title is Cooperative Electric Association Governance Requirements. And it's one of the things we're really excited about. This will really fix some of the democratic issues or lack thereof at Tri-State. Thank you very much. Yeah, there will be other clean energy legislation this year, and we look forward to talking about it.
Thanks, Joel. We're going to move on to Gretchen, who is going to talk to us about internet.
Right. Yeah, so this is, to me, a very exciting bill. This is Senate Bill 060. I'm not going to say Senate Bill 21060. That 21 is understood. There is another bill with almost exactly the same title, Expand Broadband Service, arising out of the House, but reading through the summaries of both of these bills, I'm really excited about 060 and less so about the House bill, which is 1109. The sponsors are Western Slope sponsors, as it says on your slide. Dylan Roberts, whose district is up north, and Senator Donovan, who's got the middle part of the Western Slope. I'm lucky enough to be in her district. What this bill will do is redefine what critically underserved constituents are. And this would be people who do not have access to a provider of broadband at a certain download and upload speed. If you really want to know, it's 10 megabytes down and 1 megabyte up. What I truly find innovative about this bill is that it mandates that the board that's overseeing expansion of broadband into rural and underserved communities makes a program for people of lower income to be reimbursed up to $600 a year. These would be households that have children in K-12 education system who are at a certain level of income. There's a range, you know, X percent of poverty to X percent. But what I really find exciting about that is, you know, if you think about that, $600, $50 a month, that's enough to pay perhaps for a year's worth of broadband connectivity for people who traditionally do not have it. And so, yeah, that's the difference between this bill and the bill coming out of the House. The House bill does not have a provision for any reimbursement for lower income. And just quickly, I looked up today how many households might qualify. And in my county, over half of the households with school-age kids would qualify. In Montrose County, almost half. And in Mesa County, 44%. So, you know, clearly there are a lot of people out there who could truly take advantage of this if we can push it over the finish line. So stay tuned for that one. That's it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Gretchen. We are going to move on now to Brian, who's going to talk to us about media literacy.
Hey, everybody, it's great to be with you. Yeah, so I want to talk to you just for a couple of minutes about House Bill 211103. That's the media literacy bill. You know, increasingly, this has been one of the most important issues for all Americans, but also for us here in Colorado right now. At a time when anybody can put anything that they want on the web and spread it like wildfire in social media, we are often conflating facts with misinformation, opinions, and sometimes outright lies, right? And that can have serious consequences, as folks saw very recently with the big lie that the election was rigged and stolen. That ultimately culminated on an attack on our national capital, right? But it's other things too. It's folks here in Western Colorado who are being told that climate change is a hoax, despite the fact that we are suffering from crippling drought and wildfires ravaging our landscape. It's people who are being told that vaccines are dangerous and cause autism at a point when we're in the middle of a pandemic and we desperately need to try to achieve herd immunity. So there's real catastrophic harm at place with people do not have basic media literacy skills. And so it's important to try to institute those things when folks are young and have the ability to develop those skills and practice them. That way they can use media literacy throughout their lifetime. So this particular bill would require the Department of Education to maintain an online resource bank of materials for resources pertaining to media literacy. So at a minimum, the resource bank has to include materials and resources that were recommended by the Media Literacy Advisory Committee's report. The bill requires the department, upon the request of a school district, a charter school, institute charter school, or a board of cooperative services to provide technical assistance to schools with implementing policies and procedures, best practices, and recommendations related to media literacy. The bill also requires that the State Board of Education review and adopt revisions for media literacy implementation regarding reading, writing, and civic standards. And so it keeps referencing, right, this media literacy advisory committee. So what's actually in that report? Well, if you dig into there, there's some really great concepts, right? So some of the key recommendations, some of the things that are going to be in this bank that our schools are going to now have access to are tools that can help our educators do various things, such as systematically addressing teaching media literacy in all schools, communicating the critical role of teacher librarians and playing that they play in both digital citizenship and media literacy education, convey a consistent, coherent message around media literacy that will engage stakeholders, ensure media literacy principles are clear and specific in the Colorado academic standards across reading, writing, and civics, sharing vetted information and research-based resources for media literacy education and professional development throughout the state. Funding professional development, teacher and student recognition, and grants for programming in media literacy, and forming a community of partnerships to increase the effectiveness of media literacy education. So, lots of good stuff in this bill, things that we desperately need right now. And there are actually several sponsors. It's a bipartisan effort. So in the House, we've got Representatives Cutter, McLachlan, Kipp, and Young. And in the Senate, we've got Peterson and Coram. Now, if you don't know those names, that's okay. A lot of folks don't. The names I would direct your attention to, there's a couple here, particularly for us here on the Western Slope. So Representative Barbara McLachlan, is a Democrat from District 59, and that includes the Archuleta, Gunnison, Hinsdale, La Plata, Ouray, and San Juan counties. And then in the Senate, we have Republican Don Coram, who represents District 6. And that's a broad swath that includes Archuleta, Dolores, La Plata, Montezuma, Montrose, Ouray, San Juan, and San Miguel. So again, bipartisan support, desperately needed legislation. It's something that I think all of WCA should be able to get behind and support.
Thanks, Brian. That is great information. I'm excited. I hope that passes because I've got 2 kids in school who I would love to be able to dissect what's real and what's fake news more easily. So next we're going to move over to Daniel, who has maybe arguably one of the funnest ones this evening. So Daniel, you want to take this away for us?
Absolutely. And I was going to say, I was very happy to see that I got the most fun bill out of anybody. Granted, it's about death, so it's not that fun, but this bill is relating to the idea of natural reduction with soil, which is effectively when you put a human body that has died in a container that will accelerate its natural decomposition and turn it back into soil. Now, this bill will update statutes so that several different statutes so that this can be included and is legal. It will also make it so that it is illegal to do it without the person's consent, as well as not be able to sell the soil afterwards, nor use the soil to create food. So it's not that we're decomposing humans and then growing farm food out of it, because that would of course be a little bit interesting, but rather just if I die and want to decompose back into soil, then I have the choice to do that, to do so. So this is, once again, not necessarily the most pertinent bill in a lot of ways, but definitely an interesting one that we would like to pay attention to, and one that once again gives people the right to return to the earth in the most environmental way possible. And once again, I'd like to point out that it is sponsored by Representative Matt Soper, who is from House District 54, which is one of our local ones. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have for that bill, but thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Daniel. Yeah, this is a great one that was introduced last year. And unfortunately, of course, as hundreds of bills saw due to COVID, just kind of died on arrival. And so we see it coming back again this year. Next, we're going to hear from Carolyn, who's going to talk to us about some mental health bills that are coming up.
There's 2 of them that I'm going to speak about tonight, just real quickly. They're pretty simple bills, but I personally think we need to pay more attention to mental health, and probably everybody else does too, particularly with COVID. So the first bill is a secure transportation in behavioral health crisis. And this is put forward by Representatives McCluskey and Larson and Senators Bridges and Smallwood. And basically what it's to do is to provide secure, safe transport for somebody who's in mental health crisis. So the bill is to require the State Board of Health to create some of the requirements and conditions. Then each county and their county commissioners will then license a entity, and also each individual vehicle that will be doing those transportations for people that are in mental health crisis. And also the Department of Healthcare Policy will create or implement what sounds to me to be a requirement for insurance to cover this benefit by January 1st, 2023. So an important one to help with crisis, so you're not in the back of a police car. That one is House Bill 211085. The next one is House Bill 211068. And this one is insurance coverage for mental health wellness exam. And it's put forward by Representatives Jennett and Titone and Senator Moreno. And this one is interesting because it will require an annual mental health exam up to 60 minutes and absolutely no shorter than the physical health exam. So if you think of all of your annual exams that you may or may not have had, but now there will be a mental health evaluation, a preventive mental health wellness exam. And there are to be no deductibles, no copay, and it's to be done by a qualified mental health examiner. This is, I find, to be an interesting part because I think we actually have not enough mental health providers that are able to do this. And they go through a list of people who could be qualified mental health examiners. However, that is additional training that's on top of everything else that the physician assistant, physician, the nurse, etc. May have. And I think that will be one of the difficulties because I don't think we have enough of those sort of people. So anyway, that is to look at how do we address our mental health wellness and so a diagnosis so that we can make sure it is less likely to go into crisis. So those are those two bills.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, the last few that we're going to chat about, and then we'll jump out. And we said we're going to keep this at 45 minutes, and that's what we're going to do. Again, WCA is tracking 41 bills right now. This is just a sample of some of the bills that we're looking at, but these are the last two that are just so cool we had to put them on here. So Senate Bill 2112, former inmates with fire service experience. This one's really cool. So for a number of years, we have had this program called SWIFT, which is the State Wildland Inmate Fire Team. And that is the team of nonviolent felons. Hundreds of nonviolent felons apply every single year to participate in these wildland fire teams. And I think they're teams of about 35, their size of 35. There's 3 teams, Canyon City, Buena Vista, and Rifle. So we've got a teams here in the West Slope and down south that are staffed by inmates who are doing really great work for us. They make $6 a day right now, or at least according to the last time that was reported on when they're in prison and they're accepted to this program. What this bill does is it removes barriers to them applying to be able to be paid a living wage after they get out, after they've served their time, they get out of prison, to be able to be hired on as wildland fire on their teams. And it also encourages the Wildland Fire Division to really take a good look at the folks who've been trained through this program and have the experience and really consider bringing them on. And the last really cool feature of this bill is that it includes a peer mentor program for any of these former inmates who are brought on to help support them as they transition out of jail and into the workforce like this. This is just, a tiny glimpse of what we talk about what we mean when we talk about equity. There's so many ways that we can look at what's equitable. This is one of them. And I guess just really quickly, I'll say, that this is sponsored by, again, 2 West Slope champions, Senator Carrie Donovan and Representative Dylan Roberts. And I look forward to talking with them more about this bill. The next one I want to quickly talk about is ranked choice voting and nonpartisan elections. So this is actually something that New Zealand and Australia already do. Several states implemented in 2020 for some of their primaries. Maine uses ranked choice voting, and a couple of our own municipalities use it as well, including Telluride. So what ranked choice voting is it would essentially say that instead of only being able to choose one candidate in each of the races, you can choose multiple candidates based on a first choice, a second choice, a third choice, and so on. And so what this does is once all the votes have been tallied, if there's one candidate who's gotten 50% or more of the vote, they're the automatic winner. But if there's a few candidates who are really close to each other, it recounts and retallies the scores, the votes, to see who was the second choice or who is the first and second choice combined, so that we're getting in the candidate who is still most preferred by the majority of folks. So what that means is if your first choice candidate got a real low vote and they just weren't even viable, then your second choice is taken into consideration when they're retallying the votes. So your vote still counts even if your first choice candidate wasn't picked. I know there's pros and cons to this system. What this would do is it looks at nonpartisan elections, and so it would not automatically implement it. It would allow municipalities to opt in to ranked choice voting and use it as a voting method. And that means we're looking at city council elections, I think school board elections, anything that's nonpartisan. Really interesting in terms of lessening that partisan divide and helping us understand, who we really want to get into those local offices that have such a huge impact. So that's the last bill that's been introduced that we all wanted to talk to you about this evening. I am going to stop sharing my screen now so you can see all of us. I don't know why you see me twice. That's weird. Oh, now you see my floor. That's worse. Okay. So that's really what we've got for you this evening. With the 6 minutes that we have left, we just really wanted to thank you for joining and kind of give you an idea of what the rest of these bi-weekly webinars are going to look like. Obviously, this evening wasn't as traditional as it's going to look. And the reason is because we just had hundreds of bills drop in the last few days. None of them have been calendared yet. So we can't give you a direct action just yet. How we prioritize of these hundreds of bills, and then the ones that we focus on, what we're going to bring forward to you, because in these bi-weekly webinars, what it will look like is maybe 2 or 3 bills will be discussed during a webinar, not 10, because we really want to give you more depth of the bill, give you an opportunity to ask questions, talk to you about the messaging that we're going to use, and most importantly, send you away with actions. And so the way that we're going to determine these bills are based on, is this a niche that we as Western Colorado Alliance can uniquely fill? Are there going to be lots of organizations working on this, or can we really help in terms of creating a conversation around this bill? What's the viability of the bill? Does this bill need support to survive? And what I mean when I say that is, do our legislators really need to hear from their constituents in order to make the right decision on this bill? Those are the kinds of questions that our legislative team is going to ask before we bring it to you in this bi-weekly webinar. And that way, then we can really talk about what actions look like. So Robin Cascade in the questions brought up a really good question. She asked for the broadband bill, is this going to include internet connectivity on our First Nation people's lands, the Ute Mountain Ute, the Southern Ute? I don't know that answer yet. I haven't had a chance to look at that bill too in depth. I don't know, Gretchen, if you have that answer yet or not. And I see Gretchen shaking her head. This is our first really great opportunity. So my suggestion would be that, Robin, if you'd like to, or with us, we should reach out and ask the bill sponsors. We need to know the answer, because that's what we mean when we talk about equity in bills. Is this really an equitable bill? Does it mean we won't support the bill? We don't know yet. What it means is that we could ask for an amendment if it's not included and say, gosh, we got to make sure that we're including these populations that desperately need internet connectivity. Or we could get an answer that says, yes, it's definitely included. And then we know that we can just really rock hard trying to get this bill passed, because of how meaningful and impactful it can be for folks who live on the Western Slope, including those on our First Nations land. So, which is taking a moment to say all of our land, right? We are all currently sitting on Ute land on this moment, but we do have tribes in our areas in Colorado right now. So that's one way that we could take a direct action. Once these bills get calendared, that's just another word for they're scheduled to go to committee or move from one floor to the next. That's when we'll start reaching out and we'll say, hey, okay, we're ready to go get some testimony. Or we really need someone to call their legislator whose representative is Senator Don Quorum. Those are the answers we're not expecting you to know. We just want to be able to reach out to you and say, this legislator is really movable on this really important bill. Can you help us out in getting us there, and taking specific actions? When we meet bi-weekly, we'll help you walk away with those. There's definitely going to be some bills that happen in the middle of our bi-weekly webinars. So if you're interested, I'd really encourage you to leave your email in the chat or reach out to me separately. And I can drop my email address in the chat to give me your information. And that way we can build a list of folks who are interested and really start reaching out even more than just bi-weekly if there's particular bills you're interested in helping with. Because if we've got one that comes up, sometimes they can be scheduled pretty quickly in a matter of days. And then we can at least reach out and give you the opportunity to participate in an action if you'd like. That's really what we have for you this evening. I don't know if any of our other panelists would like to mention anything. Joel, it looks like you've got something to mention.
Really quickly, going to answer a question in chat. Hello, Marianne. From 350, is the bill I talked about the most important clean energy bill? That's a question of perspective. It is the most important one for tri-state. The other mega clean energy bill I would flag, and I don't have the name in front of me, but there will be a bill that takes Colorado's existing climate action plan and gets way more specific in terms of what we need for implementation from state agencies. That's probably the biggest fight and of general ramification. The other thing I want to offer is that some of these issue areas, in addition to this call, will offer kind of deeper burst opportunities around certain bills. For example, the tri-state team is planning to have a lobby week of daily action sometime around the third week of March. That's kind of TBD, but there will be opportunities like that coming up. Obviously, we're not in-person lobbying.
All right, well, hopefully this gives you all, and thank you so much for everyone who's participating this evening. We really want to make sure that we make these bills user-friendly, easy to understand, and easy to connect with. And just as a finishing statement, a huge reminder that we don't have to be the experts on the nitty-gritty of the bill. We've got folks in our networks that we reach out to. We've got allied organizations. We've got professionals in our own membership who we make sure that we check in with depending on a specific issue that we're working on. And we have our staff here as well. So there's lots of folks that you can touch base with who can get you the answers in terms of what are the ins and outs of these bills. What is the most important is your personal story. It doesn't have to hold all of the facts and nitty-gritty details in it. It has to hold that emotional connectivity to why you as a constituent of your legislator really want to see this bill either be successful or maybe it's a bill that we want to see fail and why. Those are the types of stories, whether it's in remote testimony, calls, or emails, that are really going to make a difference in outcomes of the viability of these bills and whether or not they survive this session. So we really encourage you to get active this year, hopefully with Western Colorado Alliance, hopefully with more than just us. And our goal is to bring it to you in a user-friendly format so that we can move forward and do this well. So thank you all so much for joining this evening. And with that, we'll all sign off and let you get to the rest of your day.